Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Full Sail University online classes. My name is Steve Kane, and it is my pleasure to be with you here on week 2, special edition Tuesday, June 5th at a little after 1 p.m. It is hot and muggy down here in Florida. We're waiting on the rain. I got Duke, Gabriel, James, John S., and John a second S, and then believe it or not, a Jonathan with another S, and then we'll just throw in Jingleheimer Schmidt just to have fun with it. And then Shantae is with us all up on the front row. Giovanni is coming on, and I'm happy to have you guys all here. I want to thank everybody for your flexibility. I know that I was a tease on Thursday night and was telling you that it would be a 7 o'clock lecture, and to be quite honest, I just had not had something on my calendar that was quite important on tonight, and so I had to do some rearranging. And so, with that being said, I want to thank you so much for your flexibility and your understanding for being here. Now, as we said on last Wednesday, last Wednesday, that as we do these, the first lecture of the week, that we are going to be jumping right into these class resources and start working right on our project, our remix project that we're doing all month long. Now, I want to apologize up front because I have been made aware by about 40,000 email coming in about the weirdness of the Indaba site and the Splice site. And from what I can understand, they're being bought out by one or the other, and it's a little bit difficult. But from what I have seen in grading the Pro Tools remix milestones, that everybody was able to send a screenshot letting us know something there. And again, because of the weirdness, we're going to give you the flexibility of if it wasn't exactly what we were looking for and it was the Splice website, that at least you're going to get credit for it. So please don't have any worries about that. And that just happened this month. We're really not sure what happened about that, but we want to apologize about that. But anyway, we're going to keep rocking this remix. And as I mentioned briefly on Wednesday, after the main explanation up here about this remix, it's broken down in 2 weeks. And so last week, we tempo mapped, and we marked up a song, and you sent in a screenshot of that. Now, I'm going to say that a lot of you needed to go through this step. I saw a lot of you not having all 3 steps completed. You need at least 3. You need at least 2 identify beats to find the tempo, and then 1 to realign the song. And then you might have more than 3 if the song starts to drift. And so if you lost some points there, that was the reason why. And I just wanted to explain that out there. But today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be tracking out our rhythm tracks. Now, I want to really make clear that the plugins that we want you using are the ones that came with this class, right? Now, we know that you've got other plugins from other classes that may work in your Pro Tools setup, but we want to make sure that you're using the ones that you've gotten strictly from our Air collection and that Expand plugin. And that way, all of your teachers, because the way Full Sail works is different courses have different software packages and such, and different plugins. And so we want to make sure that you're using the plugins that the teachers for the Audio Workstations class has. So please make sure that you're only using from that Air collection and that Expand. Now, as you look through, as I do this, I'm going to hop down also to the end of the end page here and show you in the rubric where this is covered. But the way today's lecture is going to run is we're just going to be making music. I'm going to kind of be going through here. I'm going to be explaining some record modes and things like that. And as we get into the editing side and things like that, remember the things and the shortcuts that I teach you on Thursdays, I'm totally expecting you to apply to this remix, so you start learning your own workflow, yet incorporating those specific quick keys that we know that you're going to need to know to work efficiently. So, what I did is, or let me ask you guys, what do you think I did under the file menu before I started working today? What flavor of save did I do in order to make a new file and label it day two drums? And that way I've always got my original to go back. James Coleman was first with my save as. Who else is giving me that? Yeah, John Scott, thank you. We got John Shante. We got John again, another John S. Sorry, I shouldn't be using last names and all that for the HIPAA Privacy Acts. But anyway, yes, the save as. Remember, I tell you, that's a way to save your as sometimes because check it out. It's going to give me a separate session file within my session folder. And that way, if I, for some reason, did not like what I did here, I can reopen this one, yet do another save as, and keep on working and go ditch this one later. So, very good. I'm going to do a save as now. All right, so what we're going to do now that we've got our tempo map and we've got our click track working with this is we are going to hide and make inactive everything except the vocals. So I'm going to command click everything except what they're labeling as vocals and then my tracks as well. So this drop melody, the guitar, the hey that, the lead. So I'm going to leave in the vox, the low vocals, and I might even take out some of that. Now check this out. When I right click on this, you can do it in one step. You can hide it, and then you can make it inactive, which why do that if you can do it in one step, hide and make inactive? All right? So when I do that, now I've got my vocals here, and what I'm going to do, just the same way that I utilized the markers lane or the memory locations window. Remember, high five, so I'm hitting Command 5 to bring up my memory locations window. So now remember, all of my windows are up under the window menu. I just remembered this in a cheesy way. If you're going to use these, I'm going to give you a high five because it's going to make your life a whole lot easier. You know what? I should have asked you that as a question, right? I should have asked what the quick cue to that is. Because I promised I was going to make this so interactive that you guys weren't going to want to not pay attention to me. So, you weren't even going to want to be on Facebook. And if you are, make sure you go like Steve Kane Productions. And any questions up to this point about the save as function or anything like that? Give me a thumbs up. Give me a GTG for a good to go. Give me a CWT for a cool with that, or something to let me know that you are with me and on point. Thank you, Duke, Shantae, Giviani, John. Thank you. James, yes, sir. Gotcha. All right. Thank you for your interaction. It's so lovely to have you here tonight. And you know what? I'm going to rewind you. I'm going to reward you with a joke. So, why do bananas use sunscreen? Because they peel so easily. That's right. I'm going to be here all month long. All right, y'all. So we got our memory locations window. So check this out. I'm going to tell you a quick little story, and that story is going to be very relevant about the lesson we're teaching, because that's how we teach here, is through stories. All right, so, and I may have shared a little bit about this. Remember, who was I working with when I talked to you about the memory locations? Do you remember that? Were you able to watch that? And they handed me the lyric sheet, and I quickly realized that the job of the intern or the assistant was to make sure that you made track of where the song points were. I think I told you that story. Well, along with going that, so I'm not going to repeat the story, right? So, along with that, yeah, when I wasn't taking notes, and then they said, "Hey, you're supposed to be the one that's writing down where the tape machine is every other line. So when the singer says they want to go back to wherever as the engineer, I know where to take the tape machine back. So we're talking 1900s here. So, but memory locations, regardless, does that job for us. I just like telling that story because it really locks in why you want to use these things. But guess what? Homeboy Steve is going to show you yet another cool way. Hold it. Do you want to do that with some delay? Another cool way to use memory locations. All right, check this out. So because I have only my vocals, let me ask you, what is my quick key to get this sized all the way fully to the window? Whoopsh is the sound effect I use. But what was the quick key combination? Do you remember that one? That's a very, very easy one to make your working space always easy, and you never really have to fool with the sizes so much. You remember that? That's right. 3 fingers down, John. That's right, James. Yep, word. 3 fingers down, arrow. Or, believe it, up arrow works too, somebody told me. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the enter. And instead of marking this up, I don't even want it to remember a marker or yet an edit selection. We'll talk about that later on too. I want it to remember none of that. I'm going to call this Vox, because the only things that is showing is a Vox track, and then I never have to worry about hiding this over here, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to label this Vox, and what I want it to remember is the track hide and how big they are, and then I'm going to label it. I'm very CDO about it. Now, that's the same thing as OCD, but I even have to alphabetize it, you know what I'm saying? So no, seriously though, if you do things the same exact way, so number 91 is always my Vox, and so when I hit OK, now I've got a way, check this out, if everything or nothing was showing, by hitting 0.91 point, it brings back all of my Vox, and I never have to mess around with this. Now, this gets very, very handy over the 2014, I was working with one of our grads who was out on tour with Dream Theater, and we were setting up their show. They had 198 tracks. Can you imagine what a fiddle it was to have to click all of the whatever on and off you wanted to see? So this was one of the vital functions that I showed him how to make that Dream Theater show very nice and easy. So what we're going to be doing the rest of the month here is we're going to be adding this to make things like all tracks and vocal tracks and subgroup tracks and bed tracks and things like that, as well as use memory locations to mark up the song. So any questions about that? I'll sing Jeopardy if you like. Hold on, wait a minute. Oh, I don't have a MIDI track loaded up. I was going to start playing some drums with me because that's what we're going to lay down today. Can I show how to make that again? You said .91 . All right, so check it out. I'm going to make another one real quick, but before I do, I'm going to add a bunch of tracks. So I'm going to, instead of going to the track menu, I'm going to hit Shift-Command-N, right? Watch this, Shift-Command-N, and that brings that up. And I'm going to get way more tracks than I'm going to need. But for teaching right now, I'm going to get one MIDI track. So what I'm going to do is hit Command-Down arrow, and that's going to change the flavor of this track. So this, teaching you little quick keys here. And I go Command-Down arrow. Now, instead of coming and hitting this plus arrow, I'm going to hit Shift-Command-Down arrow. And then I'm going to want to get 1 to change the flavor of the track. I'm going to hit Command sideways to go stereo. I went right instead of left. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the Command down arrow to get an aux track, because you should have learned in your sequencing class, does everybody learn that you need both a MIDI and an aux track? Remember, it takes 2 to make a thing go right. Did everybody learn that? You can say just Y or N for yes or no. Come on, tell me, did you learn it? Very good. Giovanni was up first. He even gave me the yes, yes. Who's coming on up second? Come on, Duke. All right, Duke was there with the second. Shantae is out there with the third, coming in for show. You can tell I used to like horse racing, huh? Because I'm short. and I used to want to be a jockey. All right, so check it out. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you about instrument tracks. So I'm going to hit Shift Command down here again. I'm going to get more than I think I'm going to need, and we'll go there for right now. So and what I want is stereo instrument tracks, and I'm going to hit Create, which is just a fun way to enter. And yes, I know it says create, but it's just a fun way. So let's do this. For right now, we're going to take all this off. Everybody say, take it off. All right, we're going to move this Vox up to the Vox. We're going to keep it all together. So this MIDI, what I'm going to do is I'm going to label this. I double-clicked on that. I'm going to label this drums M for MIDI. And then I'm going to hit Command down arrow, which is the same thing as hitting next, which is going to prompt this next track. Command down arrow, and I'm going to call this drums return. Come on, I was trying to be cool and make it with a Z. Drums return. Come on, return. There we go. All right, so now check this out. 3 fingers down, resize all my tracks, right? Now I'm going to hit enter again. I'm going to call this all tracks. This time, all tracks, I'm going to make number 90. I don't care where it is. I don't want it to remember where it is. All I want it to do is remember what tracks are showing and hiding and how big they are. I'm going to hit OK. So now I can instantly go back. See these numbers right over here? Right? What I'm going to do on my calculator keypad to call up the vocals again, I'm going to hit decimal point 91 decimal point. When I want to see all my tracks, decimal point 90 decimal point. Cool? Now, realistically, probably as it gets bigger, I'm going to start taking out my live and stuff like that. But even now, I still want to be able to say, cool! Isn't that awesome? All right. So let's see. Can you show how to make that again? You say, all right. So we're all good. All right. So now I've got all my tracks. So what we're going to work on is our drums. So now what I want to do, check it out, is I want to make just my drums. So I'm just going to click and glide all the way up here. Actually, I might leave my click and my submaster and my master and all that. So now I've got that. I'm going to go 3 fingers down. And now I'm going to hit enter again. I'm going to call this drums or shrums. Shrums, man, shrums. Make that number 92. Oh, no, look. I did something wrong because see how it's up here? So I need to edit this. So I'm going to right click. Oh, look. I forgot to take off the marker button. And now look. Now it won't remember where it is time-wise. And so now I've got all my stuff down here. So let's just go look at my drums. All right. So we're going to hit pause for a second. Any questions about using these memory locations to recall tracks, as well as, so I could say I want now my vocal and I want to go to the verse or to there or wherever, right? And it just goes there. All right. So now I want to take a pause and we're going to learn a little bit about MIDI routing and how Pro Tools does this, okay? I want to take a quick poll. In your sequencing class, did they teach you about the utility in the Mac OS called Audio MIDI Setup? You can give me a quick Y or N if you be so kind. And while you're doing that, I'll ask you another question. Do you know what the aliens said when they came down to the metric system? They said, "Take me to your liter." Ha 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 ha. All right, so we're going to learn about this then. All right, so when you look in your Finder and you look under Applications, I like this little icon, the pop-out icon. If you look all the way at the bottom under Utilities, you're going to see your audio MIDI setup. All right. Now, realistically, this is what I do. I never do that because if I know what I'm looking for, I just type it in here, audio MIDI setup, right, and it's there. Now, what I use it so often, I dragged it down. I almost said I drug it. I drug it down to my dock, man. That sounds like a bad movie, man. So I dragged it down to my dock because it is the audio MIDI setup. Believe it or not, despite its name, it tells you how your audio and your MIDI is set up. And I know you're thinking, oh my gosh, can't be. But yeah, that's what it does. So let's go take a look at it, shall we? Kabam, kaboom, kapow. And hopefully by now you know that the system didn't make those sounds. It was your homeboy Steve making those sounds. I've got two windows under here. Who wants to make a bet of what they're labeled? Remember, this is the audio MIDI setup. It's not too hard, folks. It is the audio window and the MIDI window. Holy cow, was that me being sarcastic? Maybe? Okay. But they said, hey guys, you're teaching college students here. You gotta be silly. All right, so you got two main windows. You get your audio window and your MIDI window, right? Command 1 to 2. All right, so in my MIDI studio, notice how I've got a couple things that are nice and bright, and then a couple things that are not nice and bright. Okay? Has anybody ever seen anything in a computer that was grayed out and it meant a good thing? This isn't a rhetorical question. I want you to answer. As silly as it is. No, you've never, ever seen it been grayed out. Thank you, Giovanni. Thank you, John. Thank you, Shantae. Thank you. Who's answering next? James. Thank you, Jingleheimer Schmidt. Thank you. Who's next? Who's next? Who's next? Who's next? Who's next? Thank you, Duke. All right. So check it out. Now, here's the other thing. So these three things I've got hooked up, right? I've got a Pro 40, which is a Sapphire. This is what we use in the MIDI labs. I loved it so, not the MIDI labs, sorry, the audio workstation labs here at Full Sail. I loved it so much I bought one for myself. I've got a 610 keyboard that's a 61 note, just a quick little controller. And then to send live over the internet, to stream it out over Full Sail University, I got an audio box. All right, now notice that it's just floating here. It gives me no idea of what I've hooked it up with. Now it says it's taken for granted that you're the one that flipping hooked it up, so you should know if this is a USB cable or a FireWire cable or a Thunderbolt cable or a whatever, a USB-C now, whatever, right? So just so you know, in my studio, this is a FireWire connection, and I got one of those groovy Thunderbolt to FireWire converters, so I didn't have to buy a new interface. This is a USB, and this is a USB. All right, now, who wants to tell me what these little triangles at the bottom are? What type of connections those are? Does anybody need me to sing Jeopardy, or are you gonna just like tell me that those are the MIDI connections, bruh? Who's gonna tell me that they're the MIDI connections? Come on, somebody tell me that they're the MIDI connections. Appease me. I'm gonna take some sips of water. Everybody's acting like my 13-year-old is like, I'm not going to do anything you ask. Thank you, John. What if you have a MIDI in and a MIDI out plugged into a USB? John, that's exactly what we're going for. All right, so check this out. John, I'm going to call you Mr. Segway if you don't mind. Perfect. And by the way, it's a different John. It's John R. and not John S. And I think we even have two John S's, so that's even crazier. All right, so check it out. So this is a USB, or sorry, it's a FireWire. This one's USB, all right? So when I was setting up the Mary J. Blige tour, we had three keyboard players, right? And so we had actual MIDI interfaces that had 8 in and 8 out. So you would have seen 8 of these little triangles, 8 pairs of these triangles. So what we did is I set up and we did a handshake. So we clicked add a device, and let's say it only had a MIDI in and MIDI out, and it did not have a USB. Now, I want to do this for several reasons too, because sometimes computers have issues if they're hooked up like too many USBs. So sometimes it's good to hook up one USB MIDI interface that's got 8 in and 8 out, and that way you're only using one USB port and it's branching out. So now this is MIDI out to MIDI in, and MIDI out to MIDI in. And now I've done your traditional handshake, and that's the way you would want to do this. Now, I want to talk about this new device for a minute, all right? It just says new external device, so I'm going to double click on it. Now, it's got some properties. Now, let me take a quick poll. How many people remember talking about system exclusive, or people call it SysX? Right, system exclusive. So when I do that handshake like that, the lines won't stay drawn. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm clicking and dragging, and I'm kind of dragging until it highlights up. It's very persnickety. All right, so let's say on tour, like in our lab room here at Full Sail, I've got a Korg Triton. So I'm going to tell it Korg is the manufacturer, and then Triton is the model, right? And it gets down to like even what version I've got. I've got the rack module. So it knows everything about it, right? And if I had multiples of them, I could tell it which one is which. Which reminds me, when I went over to visit a grad over in England, our grad Mike Exeter, who got his last Grammy with the last Black Sabbath album and did UB40 Red Red Wine back in the day, he took me up to Birmingham, up to Depp International Studios, and they had a wall of Akai samplers, and this is how they kept them separated, is through their SysX ID, because the same manufacturer cord. Now, check this out. As we're learning here, let's just hit apply, right? So now it shows you that this is the Triton rack. Now, what I want to do is let me ask you, Triton rack, is this a master device that I would play, or is it a slave device that is going to make noise? So you can say play or noise, or you could say master or slave if you wanted to. All right, now remember, this is a rack unit. It has no keys, right? This is a rack unit. All right, so cool. It's the slave unit. So in reality, if I was short on MIDI cables, I could take the MIDI out. Come on, just the MIDI out. And delete it. You see how that does? Right? And then I could go play it because it's a rack module. Right? And check it out. And this is another hint. See, it only transmitted over one channel, but it received a lot of them. That was another clue that it was a slave module. All right? Now, when I went out with, or helped set up Mary J. Blige, there were several keyboard players. So to help learn their names, I would say something like, this is Jay's Triton rack, and I would hit apply. And then that way I knew that, I had people's names written down. And because I had, 6 Triton racks that we were programming for different things, I wanted to keep them separated. Right? So now I want to show you the implications of this, though. Okay, so I'm holding down Command. I'm thumbing through a tab. I want to go back to Pro Tools here. So let's get our drums up. I'm going to hit 0.92 point. That brings up my drum tracks. And actually, to get some size here, I'm going to take my silliness out of here and just make them a little bit bigger. All right, so notice that where it wants to go, it can send out to the Triton rack. Right? It can send out because it's a slave, but the Triton rack is not an option to come in. So does everybody see that distinction? Because over in AMS, I did not give it. Now, if I gave it the ability, look, then I would see it as a possibility to come in, right? So this is how, if you don't have this thing set up exactly like you've got it hooked up, this causes you bunches of troubles. Can everybody see that? See, now it's not in my input anymore, but it knows it's a slave device, so I could send it out to it. Notice there I've got no plugins yet because I haven't loaded any plugins. So, questions. So, remember that a MIDI import designates it as a slave device. A MIDI output designates it as a master device, right? Synonymous with sending or receiving. Okay? Great questions. Any other questions? And generally speaking, you want to have both hooked up if you have the cables and the budget. That's me drumming on my legs. Because I'm in Florida and I told you it was hot and muggy. I'm wearing shorts. They are both hooked up and I can't get them to handshake. All right, so John, let's talk about that after lecture, but that is definitely important to me because that's my first love is MIDI. I was course director of our MIDI courses from the year 2000 to 2006. And so I love MIDI. I love live production, and so I want to make sure that you're rocking there. But I first wanted to make sure that everybody now understands the hierarchy of AMS and how it controls what you see in Pro Tools as far as the functionality of what your choices are. I showed you the MIDI functionality, but it also works in the audio side as well, which we'll explore later. So, everybody give me a thumbs up or give me an M for MIDI or give me a question or something. Thank you, James. Thank you, Duke. Thank you, John. Thank you, Giovanni and Shantae. Yay, John. Yep, awesome. Thank you. I forgot I got to designate John S. and John R. and John R. again. All right, so let's rock on. So now I'm actually want to use a plugin, right? And we notice that I cannot send any plugins right now. So the only place in the whole wide world in Pro Tools that you can put a plugin is on an insert track. And notice that the MIDI track does not have inserts or sends. And matter of fact, that its inputs and outputs are very much MIDI channel information, unlike our aux channel friend. And I know it's an aux channel because look at my mouse over here. I'm going to wiggle it and make my mouse big here. All right, come on, there it is. Look at my drums return. See that down arrow? That's the symbol for aux track, and that little MIDI pin is the symbol for MIDI track. That little audio symbol is the symbol for audio tracks. Somebody told me in class one time, they said, that's the way a jet fighter looks like from a bird's eye view. I said, you know what? Sure. I've never seen a jet fighter from bird's eye view, but I would love to. But I believe you, bro. But I think an audio wave makes more sense in Pro Tools. And then check it out. So the MIDI pin, but then our instrument track. Well, we'll talk about that later. All right. So until I put a plug-in on an insert, it's not going to see it. So I've got a drums track and a drums return. So as soon as I put my plug-in on it, and what I'm going to do is it's a stereo track, so I want to put a multi-channel plug-in. Matter of fact, if you look at multi-mono plug-in, you're not going to see an instrument other than a click. So if I go to my instruments, that's when you should see the expand and all these others. And we'll play with a lot of these through the month. I'm going to hit expand right now. So now that I put it as a plug-in on an insert, and I generally put my instruments right up there first. Let's go ahead and get a drum sound. So under the preset category, I'm going to click and hold. And then go up here to get drums, and just for down here. No, so notice there's got plus numbers and then non-plus numbers. They're just how they put them in a library, right? So I'm just going to get a pop kit for right now. Because remember, it's MIDI. I can change the sound later. So I'm going to close that for right now. And so now, as I hit my keyboard, nothing gets through until I hit what button on my MIDI track. What button is going to start allowing signal to get through, whether it was MIDI or audio? What button do you always have to hit? And I'll give you a hint. It starts with an R, and it rhymes with record. Very good, John. So I'm going to hit the record button. Now, it's imperative that you know that this is not MIDI volume, right? Because MIDI doesn't have volume. It's got velocity. So as I hit my MIDI keyboard, this is going to show me velocity if it is hooked up correctly. Now, I thought it is hooked up correctly, but until it routes it, I don't believe it's going to show it. So now I want to route it to my drums return track to that expand. So now when I click on there, now look, it tells me that I've got a drum return track with an expand on it, and it's probably on channel 1. And now that I've got a complete loop, look, now it ungrays, it goes here, and it'll start showing me that I've got MIDI velocity. So small velocity, and you're like, well, I thought that wasn't volume. Well, it's not, because if it was an organ, it wouldn't change volume, right? So, but I could change velocities there. And then you see that it gets routed to the expand track down here. And because this is all on channel 1, right, I send it on channel 1. Look, if I send it on channel 2, no bueno, which is just Spanish for no good. All right, so I've got to make sure that I send it on channel 1. And then it gets there. Now notice that right now it's set to all instead of any specific keyboard that I'm playing. Right now I am playing my UMX. So if I went on all channels, it'll still get there. If I send on my UMX channel 1, it'll still get there. So my channels still apply, but look, as soon as I go to channel 2, I lose communication because all of my channels have to line up. I've got to receive on the same channel, send on the same channel as my slave device is set to. All right, so we'll back out. It'll work on channel 1. So therefore, I can input on all channels. And because I'm the only one here, I don't even have to tell it my device. I can say any input signal. So let's pause on this and talk about this input for a second, shall we? We're going to jump down a rabbit hole, and then we're going to lay down some MIDI tracks pretty quick. But I needed to do some background explanation on how these things are hooked up, okay? All right, so the easiest way to do this, unfortunately, and I'm not meaning this to be a shameless plug. We are totally learning here. But everybody is familiar with the Facebook, right? So on the Facebook, I think drop down Steve Kane Productions. All right. Oh, what is it doing? I tried to be something. No, remind me later. Come on. All right. So check this out. And this isn't a shameless plug. This is a teaching moment, by the way. So I want you to look at my studio when it pops up here. Now, the reason that I leave it on all, come on, studio. Come on, studio. All right. So you see over here in the studio, I've got a set of V drums. I've got MIDI keyboards. And then what you don't see is a MIDI saxophone over in the corner. So the reason that I can leave it on all when I'm in Pro Tools is no matter what I play, it would funnel through and go play those drums. So I could sit down at the drums, and then on my next track, if it's piano, I could still leave it on all and jump over to my keyboards. And on the next track for lead, I could pick up my saxophone. But there are times when I have people come over to play. And so that's when I need to be specific. If I needed my V drums or my keyboard to specifically go to that because I was playing keyboards, but my drummer friend Terry was playing the drums. Does that make sense for the input of why you would use separated inputs versus all inputs? It basically is, if you're at home playing with yourself like me, leave it on all. Hold it, wait a minute. That doesn't sound right at all. If you're the only one sending MIDI data, you can leave it on all. But the moment you have multiple, so when I go out, when we were setting up Mary J. Blige's, I would never leave a MIDI input on all. I would define it to whoever was playing, and then I would probably leave it on all channels in case they accidentally changed their transmit channel. Does that make sense? Everybody's laughing, saying that I was at home playing with myself. I see how you are. Thank you. All right. Any questions? Questions about that input? If not, I've got a question for you. All right, so we are using the drum sounds from the first Pro Tools assignment. No, not at all. So you can use whatever you want. So what I'm using is MIDI right now. So what I did is I put a MIDI plug-in and I popped up drum sounds. So right now I'm going to hit my keyboard and it's going to send signal over here. And because the channels line up, you're going to see this. And I'm going to play along to the vocal that's here in the verse. ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੀਰੇ ਵਾਲਿਆ ਵੇਖਦਾ ਈ ਵੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਲੌਂਗਾ ਵਾਚਾ. All right. So let's go talk about this. I'm experiencing a little bit of delay, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get much around it because when I go to Playback Engine, as I'm recording, I want to keep this hardware buffer set low. If you can go down to 128 without crashing, do that. Let's see if we can. We might crash, so we're going to see. All right, so here is Homeboy Steve's tip of the day. When you record, this isn't even a Homeboy Steve's. This is Big Daddy Kane's. All right, Big Daddy Kane is my dad, not the one you hear in the dentist over in Brevard County, Florida. But he's a brilliant musician, and he told me one time, if you can't sing something, you can't play something. So as you start composing, yeah, see these audio problems. My voice is glitching out. I'm going to go back to 256 here. Hopefully those problems don't happen as much now. All right. So when I'm sorry, I've just lost track because of all the. So he told me when I was learning how to play my first solo over there at the Monterey Jazz Festival, I absolutely screwed it all up. And he told me if you can't sing something, you can't play something. So what I first recommend is that maybe you get a loop, like verse, and I'm just going to do like verse 1 to verse 2. A 4-bar loop for sake of teaching. Actually, let's do 8 bars. Let's go shift all the way here, and we'll do a loop of let's do a loop of the verse and then into the chorus to the turnaround. That way we get like 2 separate sections. So I'll first work verse 2 to the chorus. So I simply held down Shift as I clicked there, and I'm gonna hold. I got my record key. So what I'm gonna do, I first want to explain normal playback in MIDI. So normal record mode. So I'm in normal. Matter of fact, it's so normal that under the options menu, it's not even there. All right, so this is non-destructive, but I need to teach you the difference of how this is with an audio track. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a quick little audio track real quick for demo purposes. Just to teach you some. This is a teach track. A teaching moment with Homeboy Steve. Everybody down with that? Give me a DWT if you're down with that. Because I want to make sure that, because some people are like, dude, all he does is jump down rabbit holes. But remember, this is like the basics class. I want to make sure that everybody's got a good basic understanding. So we are going to jump down rabbit holes. That's why I told you don't follow along with me. Just learn and absorb and then work at your own workflow later on. All right. So teaching moment here. All right. even though we're in non-destructive mode, I want to teach the differences of audio and MIDI, and we'll just do a quick little 4-bar loop, right? So I'm going to record arm this. Let's get my same microphone here so you can see me. Can you hear me? Okay, so I'm going to record MIDI and audio for, you know what, it doesn't even need to be 4 bars. It can be 2 bars for this, for the example. So we zoom in. All right, so here we go. All right, now, first of all, I need a count in so I can get ready for it. So the transport window is the first window I really want to see, and so that's why it's Command 1. And so let's get our count off here. See, count off 2 bars. Now, if I needed to change that, I can double-click, and you can go change it right here. And I like only during recording. I don't like it doing it during playback. So I'm going to count off for 2 bars during recording. So that way I can hear the 2 bars and then jump in. All right, but here's my first example. Notice that drums is 01 and that teach is 01. All right, watch. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. All right, now see that drums is still 01, but teach went to 02. So it is non-destructive in audio, but in MIDI it was destructive. Watch, I'm going to do it again. You're going to see drums stay on 1, and you're going to see teach go to 3, even though it's non-destructive. MIDI's a little bit weird because MIDI was not the first development in Pro Tools. It was started off as audio. MIDI was the second type of product in it. Let's watch again. Here's another example for you. Here's another example for you. Here's another example. Another example. All right, look. Teach 03, and it is non-destructive in my audio, but my MIDI was destructive and still 1. So I know it's weird. So here's how you get along, how you do this differently, all right? So here's my first thing. Now let's take this teach track. Let's hide it and make it inactive. All right. So as you're laying down drums, now that you know that it's destructive by nature, even though you're in a non-destructive mode, here's what happens. If I like that, that was just a good offbeat, right? I think over at the... All right, so let's pretend I like that, right? I want to quantize that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Event, and all of my MIDI operations are under Event Operations, and I want to quantizzle that. By the way, it's actually called quantize. I was just thinking about how Snoop Dogg might say it, and he would definitely say it quantizzle. I mean, faux shizzle. He would say it quantizzle. By the way, you know how Snoop Dogg keeps his dress shirt so white? Bleach. Yep, I'm going to be here all month long. All right, so check it out. I'm going to quantize this because that was on an offbeat. I don't even need to do 16th notes. I could do 8th notes and hit apply. Now, this is the least gratifying window because it doesn't disappear, right? It just, you got to watch it, make sure your notes shifted. And we can make sure that they are quantized by looking at the MIDI event list. And then we can look at the numbers and make sure they're all on the offbeats there, and they are. So now I've got a nice little offbeat. Now, if I like that and I don't want to destroy it, look, I just delete it. All right, and now look, then when I'm back at my chorus again, and by the way, this is called an auto punch because, check it out, because I've got a record track, my arrows, anytime I make a selection and I hit play or record, it's going to make that selection. And that's so because we're in recording, it's called an auto punch. So let's make another one. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sing, or I'm going to recommend that you don't try to do kick and snare separately. I'm going to recommend that you do them both at the same time. Now, what I want to do, though, check this out. I want to hear an 8th note click. So in my meter column, Starting at measure 1, let's make this thing click eighth notes. All right, so now when I hit I'm hitting the 3 button to record, by the way. You can hit record like this and then hit play, but I was hitting the 3 button. All right, now wait a minute. I just put an eighth note, so let's see what's going on. All right, so see, there are some other changes. I put that at measure 1, but look, there's some other 4/4 changes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight that meter track right there. I'm going to delete those. Or check it out. I can hold down Option and delete it. And now it's back to default. So now, let's say measure 1, 4/4, and click in eighth notes. All right. So now when I go to my verse 2, I get a chance to sing my kick and snare.
ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਾਈ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਾਈ ਚੀਰੇ ਵਾਲਿਆ ਵੇਖਦਾ ਆਈ ਵੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਲੌਂਗਾ ਵਾਚਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਲੌਂਗਾ ਵਾਚਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਲੌਂਗਾ ਵਾਚਾ.
Now notice it didn't stop me because I didn't make a selection. So that time it was just free recording. So let me show you how to trim this up. Since it started exactly right, I want to trim it right at the chorus. So what we can do is just hit the chorus, right? And then I can go edit, separate, right? No, it's not letting me pop it in here. So I got to, no, and my mouse is getting out of control. I need to pop my thing right here. Now, as long as I'm in grid mode, see I'm right there. And now that I put my cursor in there, now I can separate it right at the selection. Right? So now I've got drums 3 and drums 4. All right. So, and then I could go quantize that. Now, that one was more of a 16th note feel, so I'm going to quantize it to 16th notes. Right? And then I don't want that. Now, so see that extra little thing right there? I can take my trim tool. What quick key did I hold down? Let's get that note. Actually, let me show you the way I'd really do this. Instead of go to note view, I would take my grabber tool and I would double click. And I would take my trim tool here. Whoops, not on all of them. Click off first. Come on. All right. So now I'm going to take my trim tool, Command 2. And I'm going to trim that bad boy up right there. Okay. So let's close this window, Command W. Oh, come on. None of my quick keys are being nice to me today. All right, so let's say I like that as one of them. And now we're going to take this and quantize it as 16th notes. Boom. We're good. All right.
ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਾਈ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਾਈ ਚੀਰੇ ਵਾਲਿਆ ਵੇਖਦਾ.
All right, so I might like that for one of my verses. And so I might want to rename this right away. So I'm going to right click, because if I double click, even though double clicking with audio, I can rename it, I've actually got to right click to rename this MIDI. So I might rename this. Come on now. Rename. This is being awfully slow and unresponsive. Really? You don't want me to rename this? There we go. I might try to call this Drums V1 or something. Now, what some people do is check this out. Notice that my time is already selected, so it's going to auto punch. So what they'll do is they'll delete it, right? They'll get that same time selected from verse, shift to chorus. And now I'm going to get another one here in a different feel. Now, I don't want to keep quantizing after the fact. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to input quantize and tell it that I want 16th notes, and all I got to do is turn it on there. All right, and now it'll quantize for me. So now I've got my 2 bars of count in. I'm going to hit the number 3.
ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੀਰੇ ਵਾਲਿਆ ਵੇਖਦਾ ਈ ਵੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਲੌਂਗਾ ਵਾਚਾ ਮੇਰਾ
So let's listen.
ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੀਰੇ ਵਾਲਿਆ ਵੇਖ.
All right, so let me just edit this for a quick second. So this screen, this MIDI editor screen, right, is the same one that if you went under MIDI and went to MIDI editor right here, okay? So I just double click with my grabber tool. So I like this. I'm using T and R to zoom in and out. So I'm going to get my grabber tool. So check it out. I want this guy, delete. So let's clean up a little bit. Is that right on the beat there? No, that's a little bit off the beat. So I want one right on the beat too. So I'm going to hold down Option. And Option make it clear. Now see my velocities down here? I'm going to change those later on. All right, so check it out. Now, check it out. I want to be in grid mode. And the grid that I want is a 16th note grid. Right? So now I can... I want that on the, let's listen from the beginning.
ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੀਰੇ ਵਾਲਿਆ ਵੇਖਦਾ ਈ ਵੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਲੌਂਗਾ ਵਾਚਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਲੌਂਗਾ.
All right, I'm good with that. Good with that. All right, so now let me teach you this. Now that I've got this, let's ditch this, all right? And because what would happen, let me just show you. I'm going to right-click on, come on, I said I was going to right-click on it. And I was going to rename it like drums. My keyboard is not happy with me today. Verse, and I might put heavy kick or something so I know what it is. All right, so let's ditch this. This is kind of old school. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two and I'm going to hide them and make them inactive. All right, so here's what really happens. We get an instrument track. Now let's learn about an instrument track real quick. 3 fingers down. All right, everybody comes up here. All right, actually, before we get into this, any questions about the difference? Even though we were in non-destructive mode, did everybody see the difference of how MIDI was still destructive? And so I had to delete the ones I liked because otherwise they would get destroyed, even though my audio was being nice and non-destructive. So did everybody see that weird funkiness there? Okay, good, 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 good. Thank you, Duke. Thank you, John S.C. Thank you, Shantae. Thank you, James. Hold it, you gave me an F. I don't know what you're trying to tell me, James. All right, let's see. Did I tell y'all I was watching this documentary on beavers and how they made their houses the other day? It was the best damn documentary I've ever seen. All right, so here's a learning moment with Homeboy Steve. Check it out. Lean in close, everybody. Repeat after me. Now, hopefully you're not at work or something and you can repeat after me. But here's how I teach this on campus, and it's fun to have the whole classroom repeat this. All right, so repeat after me. Here we go. 1 + 2 = 3. You know where I'm going with this, John. All right, 1 + 2 = 3. All right, now John Reese is letting you know something. I wasn't trying to turn this into confessional, but everybody else now say peanut butter plus jelly equals peanut butter and jelly. Right? And that's a good background, right? 1 + 2 = 3. Peanut butter plus jelly equals 3. Peanut butter and jelly. So it means when you take two things and you add them together, you get a new thing. Right? So MIDI plus aux equals instrument. So you're going to see that I get the MIDI information of my MIDI tracks. As long as I've got my instrument column out, remember the grandma way to see this is edit window shows instruments. The cool hip way to do this is in that little drop down menu to show your instruments, right? So when you do that, you have all your MIDI signal flow here. You have your inserts and sends from your aux track, and you have your audio routing from your aux track. So that's why I say just as 1 + 2 = 3, just as peanut butter plus jelly equals peanut butter jelly, a MIDI track plus an aux track, which is the way they used to have to do it in the old days, equals an instrument track. And all the engineers were like, dude, it's stupid to have 2 tracks. And I'm like, all right, we'll make a new track. And so in the evolution of things, instrument tracks came to be. Does that make sense, everybody? Give me an MS4. Makes sense. Woo woo. Thank you. All right, so we're gonna do this then. Let's do our real drums here. Our real drums MIDI. All right, Dums MIDI. That's funny. All right, so I'm gonna set up a. You know what? I'm gonna show you what I would do if I was just. No, I don't. I'll do that next because I don't really want to guess where verse 2 is. I'd rather know exactly where it is. So I'm gonna set up verse 2 here. Here we go. Of course, there's no tracks to record on. Shift R is my quick key, by the way. Oh, come on. Cancel that. I hit that instead of number 3. Big up old fingers. All right, so you know what I should have done is kept on going, but I didn't hear anything, and so I realized that nothing was assigned. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put that same plug-in on there. I should have kept on going, because in the real world, a good drummer could have heard it in his head, and I was listening to the click track. I could have played in my head, but I didn't want to freak anybody out going like, dude, I don't hear the drums, I don't hear the drums. Notice how as soon as I plugged it in, it automatically assigned it. All right, so let's destroy that one. I want a new one.
ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੀਰੇ ਵਾਲਿਆ ਵੇਖਦਾ ਈ ਵੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਲੌਂਗਾ ਵਾਚਾ ਮੇਰਾ.
All right, so that's one that I like. So what I'm going to do is let's just kind of go for here. Now I want to add some hi-hats to it. So check out, let's look at my transport window. Now notice right now that my MIDI merge button right here is off. That's why it's been destructive. But now that I want to merge to it, look, it's going to let me add some hi-hats to it. So all right.
ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੀਰੇ ਵਾਲਿਆ ਵੇਖਦਾ ਈ ਵੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਲੌਂਗਾ ਵਾਚਾ ਮੇਰਾ.
All right, that first part sucked, and so I'm going to undo it. Just Command Z, and let's do it again.
ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੀਰੇ ਵਾਲੇ.
All right, so here's what I think is going on. I think my kick and my snare are messed up for a minute. So let's edit that for a second, and let's just make sure that they are where it is. So look at this. This was hitting on the beginning of 2. See that they were all off there. Look at that. All right. Let's see if that makes that darn hi-hat. I was like, what is going on? Something is weird, man. All right. So, let's merge to this now.
ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਾਹੀਂ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਾਹੀਂ ਚੀਰੇ ਵਾਲਿਆ ਵੇਖਦਾ ਈ ਵੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਲੌਂਗਾ ਵਾਚਾ ਮੇਰਾ
All right, so let's listen.
ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਾਹੀਂ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਾਹੀਂ ਚੀਰੇ ਵਾਲਿਆ ਵੇਖਦਾ ਈ ਵੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਲੌਂਗਾ ਵਾਚਾ ਮੇਰਾ
All right, so I need to hear this a little bit better. So one of the things that is happening is my velocities for my hi-hats are way low. So see, actually, I thought they were way low, but my kick and snare seem to be drowning them out. My kicks seem to be pretty good, but I don't know. Let's listen. I just
ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਾਹੀਂ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਾਹੀਂ ਚੀਰੇ ਵਾਲਿਆ ਵੇਖਦਾ ਈ ਵੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਲੌਂਗਾ ਵਾਚਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਲੌਂਗਾ ਵਾਚਾ
All right. So I think I'm good there. So let's just clean up. So now I've got 4 tracks right here. I got a kick and a snare and a hat and a hi-hat. So true or false? When I'm in a big studio, good luck, Jonathan. I got somebody going. It's like, hey, I gotta go, guys. Got a dental appointment. So yeah, gosh, be with you, man. Whew. So anyway, is it a common thing that I would put this through the same exact track on a big mixing console, or would I separate them? Say same or separate. Very good, John. Yep. Keep them separated. All right, so here's how we're going to do this in Pro Tools world. Is we're going to take this, and I've got 4 tracks, so check it out. Remember we said everything in MIDI world was under event operations. So I want to select and split notes away. All right, so check this out. When I go here, I want to tell it, look at all the notes. And then what I want to do is tell it to split the notes away, cut them from the original track, and give each pitch its own track. All right, and when I hit apply, watch. I got to scroll down here to show you. See how it gives me all of these? And it cut it away from the new track. So I can now take this one, hide it, and make it inactive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think this is a misnomer here. Now, usually 3 fingers down would work, but there's something weird about this that until you resize these instrument tracks the first time, they won't work with 3 fingers down. So you got to do it's a bug in the software, and they just haven't listened to me. So check it out. After I resize them the first time, now check it out. 3 fingers down. All right, so I'm not sure what this one was, but that's a bad track, so let's hide and make that inactive. All right, so now 3 fingers down. So now what we're going to do is we're going to double click, and we know that's the open hat. And I'm going to put M for MIDI. Command down arrow, that's my hat for MIDI. Command down arrow, that's my snare for MIDI. Down arrow, that's my kick for MIDI. All right, now check it out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shift click on all of these, and I'm going to put the same plug in all of them, but I'm going to hold down shift and option so it does it at the same time. Ooh, how you like me now? Ba-da-ba-ba-doom-bow. Right? So now what I can do is I can say, all right, for my closed or for my open hat, I want to use the same drum kit for my open and closed hat because they work together. And you know what? I like the live sound. More of that live kit sound. Where was my live kit? Live drums. So for my open hat, and then the grandma way to do this is to close the plug-in and go grab the next plug-in. And nobody wants to be like grandma on the internet. Remember that. My grandmother doesn't use the internet anymore. She died a few years ago. But she loves the fact that I still talk about her in lectures. That's called an anti-joke, you guys. I'm getting like, oh, man, he went there. That's called an anti-joke. Grandma's going like, oh, he's still talking about me, remembering me. All right, but so check this out. I'm going to show you the non-grandma way in a minute. All right, so we said that hats work together. We got to do this the same way, right? So we want the live kit on the hat and the open hat. But check this out. Here's the non-grandma way. Now go to your snare, and then let's see. For the snare, let's use the rock kit. Not like like SpaceX, but like the rock kit. All right, and then for the drums, let's use the let's use the fatty kit. Let's see what that sounds like. I absolutely hate that kick sound. I could change my kick sound up here, you know. Yeah, I could totally change that.
पिछे पिछे आंदा मेरी चाल वे नाही पिछे पिछे आंदा मेरी चाल वे नाही चीरे वाले आप.
All right, I like that. That's a much better sound. And then check this out. I'm going to take this track that was stupid a minute ago. So 3 fingers down. I'm now going to hold down Option. I'm going to put another plugin on it. Right? Okay, so it wants me to make it active first. So right click and make it active. All right, and now here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put, instead of the fat kit on there, I'm going to put a different kit on there so we can layer a kick drum, get a nice cool kick drum sound. They got like an electronic, their dub. Check it out. So now that we've got that, I'm going to take this to this one, right? So now we're on, let's name this one Kick Dos, which is just Spanish for kick two. I don't need these record armed anymore. All right, so for my kick dose, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this, I'm going to hold down Option, and I'm going to copy it. Now, I'm going to assign it to my kick dose expand. And now what I want it to do, because notice that they're named the same thing, right? So if I do something to this one, it's going to get done to this one because they're the same clip. So what I want to do now is consolidate it so it automatically names it click dose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit, consolidate. And that's just a quick way to rename my MIDI click. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click. I'm just going to bring them down one. So I get a nice little electronica sound too. And now I'm going to blend the two together.
पिछे पिछे आंदा मेरी चाल वे नाही पिछे पिछे आंदा मेरी चाल वे नाही चीरे वाले आवे कदाई वे मेरा लौंगा वाचा.
All right. So I like my drum kit, but here's the thing though. So I know I can mix it there, but now notice this. I've got 4 plugins happening and I'm going to start crashing soon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to commit all of these to audio. Now, you can do this one at a time, but it's going to take a while. So let's do this now. Now, I'm just doing my first verse right now. And so what we're going to do is I want to take all of this, and when you do this, I want you to grab the information up here too. So you're going to shift-click the blank information so everything can line up. So you're going to have to take the selector tool, hold down Shift, and double-click. So you get all this space so everything lines up right at measure 1. If we ever had to create it in another session, we don't have to guess where each part goes. Everything just, boom, goes to the beginning, although our music starts at measure 3. All right? So now check this out. What we're going to do is we're going to right-click on all these, and we are going to commit these. Now I'm going to hold down Shift and Option before I do it so it does it to everybody. So Shift and Option, and now I'll commit. I'll be back with you in just a minute. Oh, well, after I hit OK. So the reason that I left these at 0, I'm not worried about my mix level right now. I want these at premium volume, right? So that's why all my volumes are at 0. If I had any automation here, which for this reason we wouldn't, but in other workflow areas, you would definitely want this. But right now, just committing MIDI as audio, I probably don't have any automation anyway. I want everything at 0, and I want it to insert them right after the last track. And here's the biggie. Now let me show you why this is biggie here. Oh, look at Steve Kane Productions. Please go like my page. So check it out. These are the only tracks that need to be printed as audio, but be sure to leave the original MIDI tracks for all parts of the remix. These can be muted and hidden. Now, you're going to find that you're probably going to want to print everything as audio, but let me show you why this is important, especially down here at the rubric. Listen to this. This is one of the things that will get you a 0. You got to have all your MIDI tracks in the session, all right? So, let's go back up here, and we're just about done with our main rhythm. Now, although I'm only doing a verse, I expect you to do the entire song. You know, I can't teach and do an entire song in 2 hours. So even though I'm just doing 4 or 8 bars, I'm expecting you to do the entire song. I had one person turn in like 4 bars of the song. I'm like, dude, all right, I guess I got to mention now, like, you got to do the whole song, man. Like, well, you only did 4 bars. All right, well, here's the reason that I pointed that rubric out right now, because what's going to happen to these source MIDI tracks, you better not delete them or you're going to get a 0. All right, you got to just hide them and make them inactive, right? And then offline means it's going to happen quicker. Watch this. I'll be back in a moment. All right, so now they're audio. Oh, I'm going to 3 fingers down. Now I'm going to right click or go under the edit menu there, and I'm going to edit the memory location because now this is what I want my drums to be. Okay? And now I can start playing with my mix a little bit and get everything a little bit closer to what I want to hear as I start working. Because nobody wants to hear stuff like, oh, don't pay attention to that, that's way too loud. So I just like to
ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਾਹੀ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਾਹੀ ਚੀਰੇ ਵਾਲਿਆ ਵੇਖਦਾ ਈ ਵੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਲੌਂਗਾ ਵਾਚਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਲੌਂਗਾ ਵਾਚਾ.
All right, so let's do some cleanup real quick. Let's bring back all tracks, right? And now we know we need to add the drums to all tracks. 3 fingers down. We can take these 2 out of it. Three fingers down. And let's clean up all tracks. Now, I don't want them all blue either, all right? So let's start paying attention to that. So let's get our track color on here. And so what I want is my vocals to definitely stand out. I know my master fader's red, and I'm probably going to change that later on because I usually like my vocals red. So I'm going to double click in this little color bar, and I want all 3 of those to be a red flavor. Now, the reason that the clips changed that color as well is up in the preferences. We want the default clip color to be the track color, and that way you can almost tell what it is by looking. And then the other thing that I've got is always display marker colors, and that's why my markers spread out and yours might just be little nuggets. So if you like the way that the markers spread out across here, go ahead and check that preference as well. All right, any questions about what we just did? We committed our MIDI tracks as audio, and then we took advantage of some organizational moments. We reorganized so all tracks work and drums work, and then we're starting to color code things as we go. So we're going to leave our rhythm tracks blue for right now. We're going to make our vocals red for right now. You get your own type of thing. I might leave my submasters and masters green and such. Matter of fact, I'm going to do that right now so I don't get confused. My master fader right now, I want more of like my bright green, so I know that's the big time master. All right, so I don't need to see that. Oh, come on. Hit the minus button right there. With this big mouse, it's tough to be persistent. Come on. All right, I'm not worried about you. There we go. All right. So we've got all our tracks here. And I probably, at this point, as I'm setting things up, because things are a little bit tight right now as far as just vocals are really loud. So I'm going to take advantage of making some edit and mix groups right now. So I'm going to take my vocals and make a group. So under my track, I want to group these tracks together, and I want to make an edit and mix group. Now, my own belief is that in songwriting, I use groups more for editing than mixing. But in different workflows, in different environments, that's not necessarily true, right? But in songwriting, so then I'm going to take my drums over here and make another group, and it's just Command G. And we'll call that our drums. Now, to turn them on and off, you just make them gray in that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off my drums a minute, and I'm going to bring down my vocals until I like where they are. And I think that's a bit closer. And actually, as we get to mixing on week 4, you're going to realize that these numbers are going to change again. I just kind of want to get a little bit of a mix as I'm going. So, so let's check this out too. Over in La Rubrique, which is just French for the rubric. Look at this. A minimum of 2 edit mix groups are used, right? So, and as I said, in songwriting, I think I use them more as edit groups than mix groups. But in, we'll get there later on. But definitely in other types of work, remixing work for movies, games, and things like that, people might tell you that they use them more for mixing than editing. So it is all dependent. It's kind of like, what is the most important tool? Well, if you're putting nails in, a hammer is. If you're drilling holes, a drill is. Well, I guess a hammer could make a hole, but not as pretty as a drill, right? All right, do you know what a light year is? It's the same as a regular year, it's just less calories. Okay, so with this being said, let's bring on some more instrument tracks and let's get some bed tracks made. I mean, some secondary rhythm tracks made. So I'm going to go ahead and do a save as. And now that we've got our drums set up, I'm going to call this percussion. I'm going to hit 3 fingers down. Did only 2 of those come up? Darn. All right, so 3 fingers down. I'll go ahead and recall this to our drums track. I'm not going to worry about making my all tracks yet because I know that these are still MIDI and I'm going to commit them down as audio. Oh, you know what? I was silly though. Take off my vocals. 3 fingers down. Now they're my drum tracks. Okay. So one of the things that I'm going to do just to keep everything rolling is go ahead and Stick that maybe in a lighter blue color. Let them know that, or let me know that they're similar instruments. Right. Let's go ahead and name them, like a tambourine or a shaker or something, a clap. Something that's going to happen maybe more often than the other. A shaker might happen more often than a clap. And if you want to use a loop or stuff like that, you can do that as well. So for these three, let's use the boom. All right, so I'm going to hold down Shift and Option. And that way, boom comes up on all of them. So remember, it's the multi-channel plugin. And let's go look at boom for a minute. Boom is a great drum machine type of program. Now, if anybody's remembered old style drum machines, programming 16th notes and 8th notes and all that kind of stuff, right? So you know what I'm talking about. This is a great little tool, right? So let's put all three of them here. I'm going to hold down Shift and Option. And since our tempo is flirting around that 90 beat a minute or whatever, let's go see what they have for that. Let's do Nulanta. All right. So Nulanta. Now I wonder, did it all change? No, it did not. That might be a fun one too. And then for our loop, let's make, now see, I'm showing you the grandma way of doing things instead of doing up there. It's like, practice what you preach, man. Let's hear some jam toms or something. Okay. So now the cool thing is, because we locked in our tempo, on the tambourine, on octaves of 1 and 2, these are single hits. But when you get up to octave 3, when you hold them down, they're loops. So let's play with this for a second. There you go. We'll put it up high like that. And for the tambourine, I'm just going to do some occasional hits like Prince would do or something. All right, so now notice that because my click wasn't on, it wasn't giving me the count off. So I need to turn my click on to hear it. Right? Actually, no, I muted my click. Sorry. So in this situation, it's going to click the count off and then not click because I've already got my drums there. So let's go to the verse. 3.
पिछे पिछे आंदा मेरी चाल वे नाही पिछे पिछे आंदा मेरी चाल वे नाही चीरे वाले आवे कदाई वे मेरा लौंगा वाचा मेरा लौंगा वाचा मेरा लौंगा वाचा मेरा लौंगा वाचा मेरा लौंगा वाचा.
All right, so we kind of went there, but that's why I didn't want it to auto cut, because I was like in the groove, right? So now let's go down to shaker. Now check this out. Command down arrow. Watch what happens here. Command down arrow. Automatically gets my next MIDI track going on. What? Crazy, man. So let's get a shaker. The speech is my recital. I think it's very vital. All right, so check this out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to solo. So check it out. Since I got my drum tracks here, if I solo one, and I didn't get these in my drums, but so all right, now I'm going to show you a trick. Since I'm not listening to the vocals, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out of conductor mode for a minute. I'm going to slow this way down, right? And when I listen to the click, even though it's eighth notes, I'm going to count them like quarter notes. So by the time I'm playing 16th notes, I'm really going to be playing 32nd notes. So what I want to do first is I want to go change my input quantize to 32nd notes to go grab these, because there's no way I could play 32nd notes going that fast. So I got to slow it way down first. So I want to start right here, and we're going to play that same part. And I'm just, because that audio, all right, so check this out. Because the audio is here, if I want to hear those other drums, that audio is not going to play. But look what happens when I bring my other drums back, right? And if I make them all active, I'll hear the MIDI aspect of it again. Now, I'm only doing this so I can kind of fake it out and put my shaker in at a better speed, because I'm going to kind of fool it now. And so remember, I'm going to count. I know it's counting eighth notes, but I'm going to count them as quarter notes. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and a 4 and 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and a 1 and 2 and 3 and a 4 and a 2 and a 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2 and 3 4 1 and 2 3 4 1 2 3 and 4 1 2 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 2 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. Okay, so let's go fix that one crazy note that we hit. So we're going to go grab the grabber. All right, now check this out. All I do is I go back to conductor mode. And look, it lines back up with here. And now let's listen. We can take all of these guys again, because that didn't work anyway. That's my audio, so those are cool. We don't need to solo them all. And honestly, I thought when we set up our groups that we had our... Oh, you know what? It was MIDI groups that we set up, maybe not the audio groups. Maybe that's why. All right, so let's listen what happened.
ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਆਂਦਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਚਾਲ ਵੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੀਰੇ ਵਾਲਿਆ ਵੇਖਦਾ ਈ ਵੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਲੌਂਗਾ ਵਾਚਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਲੌਂਗਾ ਵਾਚਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਲੌਂਗਾ ਵਾਚਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਲੌਂਗਾ ਵਾਚਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਲੌਂਗਾ ਵਾਚਾ.
All right, so you hear what it was doing there? And that's just a brilliant way. So any questions about that, what I did, is because it was MIDI, I can record it at a slower speed and then speed it up. And in Pro Tools, the easiest way to do this so I don't mess up my map is just go to manual mode, slow it down, record it, and then pop right back in. And because it's locked to the measure, beat, and tick, it works. It falls right in. So now I'm going to go... let's put a loop in here, and then we will call it a day after we get everything committed here. So let's go find a cool little loop now. All right, so there's two ways to do this. You can hold down notes or I can play different notes at different times. Now, the problem with doing that is anytime I start a new note, it starts from the beginning of the pattern, see? Most of the time, you're going to get some sort of kick drum. So unless you want a kick drum, but we're going like... and like a fill. So I might do that towards the end or something. So I'm going to show you both styles. I'm going to play some with just holding down the loops. And you're going to notice, even though that the tempo is changing, because it's MIDI, it's going to be in sync. Let's put ourselves at the right spot first. So I want to be at verse 2. So I'm going to hit decimal point, 4 decimal point. And then we'll hit 3.
पीछे पीछे आना मेरी चाल वे नाई पीछे पीछे आना मेरी चाल वे नाई चीरे वाले आवे कदाई वे मेरा लौंगा वाचा मेरा लौंगा वाचा मेरा लौंगा वाचा मेरा लौंगा वाचा मेरा लौंगा वाचा
All right, so whatever. Now let's listen what we got at our verse 2 and see how it's rocking.
पीछे पीछे आना मेरी चाल वे नाई पीछे पीछे आना मेरी चाल वे नाई चीरे वाले आवे कदाई वे मेरा लौंगा वाचा मेरा लौंगा वाचा मेरा लौंगा वाचा मेरा लौंगा वाचा मेरा लौंगा वाचा.
All right, so now it's time to turn this into and commit it to audio. So remember, what we're going to do is we're going to take this, and then I'm going to hit Command 3 to get my selector tool. I hold down Shift, and I double-click to get all the stuff in front. And then I'm going to hold down Shift and get all up to my loop track. And it didn't quite grab that, so I'm going to double-click on that as well. All right? Now, I'm going to hold down Shift and Option so it all does, all three do it at the same time. I'm going to right-click, and we're going to go to Commit. Now, even though it says you don't have to commit these as audio, I bet that you're going to start getting a lot of errors if you don't commit them as audio. All right, 3 fingers down. All right, so let's take out my silly tracks right here because now it's costing us real estate. Keep my click, submaster, master up at the top. Everything else down there. I don't know why our kicks didn't go. Oh, those are our instrument tracks that we unhid. So let's hide those and make those inactive again. 3 fingers down. 3 fingers down. All right. So now we update our drums. So we're going to right click on our drums. And then we're going to update all tracks. So now the cool thing is that I know they're right here. So I've got my drums to add to it. And then my tambourine and those to add to it. 3 fingers down. And then something, drums return shouldn't be in there. And drums MIDI shouldn't be in there. 3 fingers down. And now we've got all tracks. So I right click on that and re-update that. So you see how easy this is? Now I can hit, I can click either one of those, and it's like I've got my tracks just like I want to. And if you start memorizing these, it is so easy to hit decimal point, whatever this number is, and decimal point, and they line up. They fill up the entire screen. They all work nicely together. All right. So as you are going through there, remember, I recommend that you start with your kick and snare and then add your hat. I think that's your easiest composition tool. If you feel like you're having problems putting that, go ahead and turn your click track on, because a lot of people, it's hard to write a drum track if you're not listening to a steady beat. So put the click track on. You might feel like you want to listen to it at an eighth note instead of a quarter note. Sometimes that helps you. And sing them first. Sing them before you're recording them, and that way you kind of know what you want to do. That will help as well. So let's look over this real quick and just make sure that my audience has any last questions here. So in day 2, we pretty much were working on our rhythm. So let me do one last, I'm going to do a save, and I'm going to do a save as one last time to let it know that this is the one with all drums. All right, and now I've got plenty of ways to go back. So we did at least 4 main rhythms: a kick, snare, hat, and open hat if you feel comfy enough doing that. Remember, we're stressing that we're only using the plugins that we gave you in this class. All right. You've got to always have all of your MIDI tracks. These are the only ones that have to be recorded as audio. But like I said, you're probably going to... Now, when I say recorded as audio, what am I really talking about? What's the C word that I'm really talking about when I'm saying recorded as audio? We've been doing it by right-clicking. Sometimes people think it's what needs to happen to me. That's right, committing. Thanks, John. Like, you need committed, bro. So that's what we're talking about. These are the only ones, your main ones are the only ones that have to be committed, but your system will probably start crashing on you a little bit. You're probably going to find that committing the tracks frees up some of that processing. So then we came down and we recorded a shaker and a tambourine and then a loop or something that worked for you. And be sure to leave those original MIDI tracks in the session. Even though we're going to be inactive and hiding them, I'm going to be looking at them when we're grading them. So notice that I've still got all my original tracks. And now we've got we've got a couple new ways that we did our vocals, to recall our vocals or recall all tracks or to recall our drum tracks. So we've got different ways to work our memory locations. We started color coding things now to keep things organized. So any questions with my studio audience before we stop the archive and I stay a little bit later? I got some folks that need some help. But any questions about this assignment from my archive? I want to thank Duke, Gabriel, Giovanni, James, John R., John S.C., and John S.E. Shantae, thank y'all all for coming. It sounds like I've got no questions. So, thank you for attending. As always, I am Steve Kane. Peace out. And make sure that you reach out with any questions if you're not getting this on that second or third work through. Peace out, everybody. I will see you Thursday at 7 p.m.